Hey guys, welcome to A Little Bit of Monica. I am so excited to be starting another weekly vlog for you. This week is going to be a lot of buddy reads. I'm finding buddy reads and book club reads, so I'm really excited to get into these. The first one that I'm going to be starting, and I am literally starting today, is A Court of Silver Flames. I briefly mentioned at the end of my last week's vlog that I would be starting this, and I am jumping into it now. This is the final book that's out for the Court series of Sarah J Maas, and I'm really excited to go into this one because I do kind of know that it is going to be focusing more on Nesta. And I'm really fascinated by her character because I feel like through reading the other books, I genuinely had like no opinion on her. I didn't dislike her, but I didn't love her. I just feel like I didn't get enough from her to really have a formulated opinion, but I do know that she is going to be getting a lot deeper in this book, and that makes me really excited because I want to care about her more. And I was a little disappointed in how much her character in the previous books just kind of got, like, you could tell you weren't supposed to like her because she has a terrible attitude most of the time, but at the same time we don't have enough to really formulate any sort of real thoughts. So I'm excited to dive into this, and also Cassian. I love Cassian. He's one of my favorite characters in this series, and so I'm really excited to kind of get to see more of him, get to see more of Nesta, and really dive into the story for the final installment that is currently out, because I think there's some coming later. But for now, I am going to dive into this book, and I am really excited to share my thoughts with you as I go. I think it is going to take me like a full week to get through because it's like over 700 pages, and we do about 100 pages a day in my buddy read that I do with Michelle, and then some other people have joined in with us, which is really exciting. So this one's going to take me quite a while to get through, but I'm really excited because I've been living in this world for a couple of weeks, and I want to know what's going to be coming, so I will let you know once I find out some more. Mini life update. It is Tuesday, and there was a snowstorm overnight. It was supposed to be like 1 to 2 inches on paved surfaces or something like that, and well, it ended up being like 5 inches, and a lot of trees have been downed from this snowstorm because it was like started as rain and then it turned into snow, so it was like the really heavy wet snow that is breaking trees. And we have been without power now for 6 hours, I think, and it's really stressful because I work from home, and without power I have no internet, so I've been struggling to do my job. I've been doing everything on my phone. I'm taking this video very quickly just as an update, but I have to get off my phone because we have to conserve power, because as of the website for our electric company, we might not be getting repaired until Thursday, so that's 2 whole days without power. I have no idea what this is going to turn into. It might come back sooner than that, depending on when they get it repaired. I know some other areas, they said the same thing and they're back up and running, but ours has been down for like 5 or 6 hours now, and we have no heat, we have no way to cook. I literally just had a banana because we have very limited food here that does not require cooking of some sort, stove or microwave or something. So we're really struggling. However, because I can't really do any work from home, I will be reading a lot today, and so I figured I'd give a little bit of an update very quickly that I am reading Along the Razor's Edge, and I'm buddy reading this with Lexi, so we have like a portion that we'll be reading today, and then I am also buddy reading A Court of Silver Flames with Michelle and a bunch of other people, and so I will be reading that as well today. I was a little bit behind from yesterday, so I'm caught up and reading today's portion, and I might just keep going because I have nothing better to do without any power. I can't watch TV, I can't do a whole lot, I can't work. So I'm really just going to be reading all day, which I have no complaints about. We have a lot of natural light in our house, so we're going to be utilizing that while we still have it. It's going to get really dark once the sun goes down if we have no power. So I'm going to be getting in all my reading now, and it's been a really good time so far, just getting to sit and read and check in with work occasionally. But that is my update for today. I'm not going to do a whole lot more updating because I need to conserve phone battery because I can't charge it. If I need to charge my phone, I'd have to go out to my car and do it that way. So anyway, that is my quick update for this snowy Tuesday with no power, so no heat. We're going to be wrapped up in blankets. I actually came in here to grab some of my other blankets and head back out to the living room to sit and read some more. So that's how my day's going. Alright, so after today, I made it to the 300 page mark in Silver Flames, and honestly, I am having such a good time reading this book, which is such a relief because I was a little bit worried After really loving Wings and Ruin and then Frost and Starlight, I feel like I was so intimidated by Silver Flames. I've heard a lot of people talk about how much they love this book and how much they love the story focusing on Nesta, specifically Nesta, but also Cassian, and I am loving it as much as I had hoped that I would. I think Nesta has been such an interesting character to focus on because I really did not have any opinion on her for the first couple of books. She wasn't the main focus, but she also was not painted in the best light, and she has a bad attitude, and you're not really meant to like her. And then she becomes the main focus in this book, and you truly start to dive deeper and understand who she is and why she is the way she is. And I really love getting to explore this side of her and understand the traumas, understand her mind and what she's going through, and seeing the journey that she takes. I mean, I'm like not even halfway through this book yet, but getting to see the journey that she takes and what it is all going to look like is so fun. Plus, getting to see this story from Cassian's perspective as well, because I love Cassian. I have grown to love him even more in this book than before, but I've said before, side characters tend to end up being my absolute favorite, especially in found family pieces, and Cassian is truly one of the top tier people in this entire series. I love him so much, and I am just so excited to be able to get more of his story. Their dynamic is iconic. Their dynamic is so stressful, but so good, and I am so excited to see where the rest of this is going to go. It is getting spicy. The spice is building, and I know it's just going to be getting even more and more intense throughout the rest of this book. So I'm really excited to see where the rest of this is going to go, but so far it's been so good, and I have really high hopes. It's trending towards at least a 4 or 5 star at this point, but I will let you know once I get a little further in, because this is like almost 800 pages long, so I've got quite a ways to go still. So I am getting ready to start reading Bridge by Lauren Beukes. This is our Pyramid Book Club pick for February, and I'm really excited about this, but I'm a little bit nervous as well. The main character, I believe, is dealing with the recent passing of her mother, who was doing neuroscience that had to do with the ability to cross into alternate realities. And this concept is so interesting to me, and I am really excited to find out how the story is going to go. I mean, just the very concept is kind of mind-blowing, but also so fun. And I am both nervous and excited. Nervous because it's a lot of science, it's a lot of hard to grasp concepts, but also excited because I really am fascinated by this. I'm a little bit nervous as well because I know some people have been reading this already and have not been loving it, so I'm a little bit afraid of how I'm going to react. However, I'm not going to let that, you know, get into my head. I'm really excited to jump into this. I also feel like this cover is really cool. If I can get the window glare off, it just like feels really cool, but I also have no idea what I'm getting myself into. But I will be giving lots of details through this vlog, and then by the time this vlog comes out, we will have already had our live show for the book, but I'm really excited to be able to talk about it because I feel like this is the type of book that whether you like it or you hate it, there's going to be things to talk about because of the complex nature of the plot. So I'm gonna go ahead and dive in, and I will let you know once I've made it a little further in. Okay, so I am somewhere between a third and halfway through this book, and just a little bit of an update. I kind of have a grasp on what is happening in the story, I think. I'll be honest, it did take a little bit to get into it and to fully understand what the heck I was reading. There were a couple of chapters right at the beginning that I had to reread a couple of times because I would read it and be like, what the heck did I just read? And then I'd reread it, and then I would think that I was understanding it completely different than the first time, so then I'd read it again. Like, putting the pieces together was a little bit difficult at first. However, I think that's because, not that I had the wrong idea of what this book was going to be about going into it, but I don't know, it's just understanding the complexity of the situation that is happening, because the description of the book tells us that Bridge is the main character, Bridget, and her mother was doing these experiments with the dream worm, which allows people to kind of cross into alternate realities. But what I didn't really understand until after reading the first couple chapters is not only are they going into a different reality, but they're essentially swapping bodies with whoever they are going into. So if Bridge is going into another reality and she's going to be entering somebody else's life, somebody else's body, and where they are at that moment. And whoever's body she's in is going to be in her body, in her reality. And that's really complicated to write as a surprise. Not really a surprise, but like, it was difficult to read and comprehend when all you know is that it's just telling that this person wakes up and is angry and surprised and scared, and it's telling multiple perspectives kind of all at once. It felt very jumbled, and it wasn't until I took a minute and really sat down and thought about it and reasoned out, like, okay, wait, this is what's happening. And then it started to make sense. And then I was super invested. Like, not only was it this, you know, being able to go into other realities, but it's the body swapping. It's the, like, oh man, it just makes it so much more complex, and I actually really, really like it. So now we're getting more into the story of Bridge exploring what her mom was exploring and discovering that her mom was right, and this stuff is not just made up, and that's really hard for her to grasp. It's really hard for her friend Dom to grasp, but together they are both kind of figuring this out, and then they do meet somebody else who is going to help fill in some of the gaps, but also I think create some more gaps and make it even more confusing sometimes. But we also are getting multiple perspectives, so there's different perspective chapters for a couple different characters that you are slowly picking up what they are meaning. We obviously have Bridge and Dom, and the two of them each get their own chapters occasionally, but then there's another character named Amber that we're getting a perspective from. And honestly, I still don't have a whole lot of context as far as what she's going to be doing, or her side is a little bit still murky. But at the same time, we are getting these journal entries from Bridge's mom, Jo, who has since passed, but has all these journal entries of all this work that she's been doing on this dream worm. And they are kind of filtering through all of this work and trying to understand it more. And I'm going to be honest, I don't love all the flashback type of chapters. The journal entries are not super interesting to me. It's definitely the parts where I'm kind of like wanting it to go a little faster. I'm definitely skimming more than I am with the Bridge chapters, because I really like what Bridge is doing and I am fascinated and like absolutely invested in that. But the Jo flashbacks are a little bit more rough for me, so I'm hoping they're going to get a little bit more interesting, but as of right now, that's where I'm at. I still have quite a ways to go, like over halfway. So there's a lot of book. It's like over 400 pages, and I am just under 200 pages in. So it's interesting, but I can see where there are some lulls in the action, some not boring, but it's just the pacing is a little bit strange sometimes. But I am still really interested, and the reality thing is very cool. So I'm really excited to see where else this is going to go. Right after I started talking is when my cats decided that they were going to start fighting with each other. So if you hear the jingling, they're having a fun time now. But anyway, I do need to give you my update on Bridge. I just finished it, and I have so many thoughts and no thoughts. Like, this book did everything and nothing at the same time. Since we ended up not going with a live show because there wasn't enough to talk about, this is going to be my full review and a lot more information on what I thought while reading this. Basically, I am going to give this book 2.5 to 3 stars. I haven't yet decided if I want to go with 2 or 3, because I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. And I don't want to say I didn't like it, but I also don't know if I did like it. And it's really complicated in my own brain to figure out how I feel about this book, because I just don't know. But basically, it got a lot more reality complex in the second half of the book. The last update that I had given, I wasn't super thrilled with the way some of the things were being handled. I do think that the book kept a better pace through the ending. Things were starting to happen, more interpersonal drama, more inter-reality drama, and I think it carried itself pretty well there. But there was just something about this book that felt like it was dragging on forever. I feel like the book never ended, and the writing, like the actual print in the book, is pretty large compared to other books, and this is 400 pages, so you'd think 400 pages, large print, should be a piece of cake, but it wasn't. I feel like this book took me forever to get through, and I think part of that is because there were a lot of times where I had to read slower in order to make sure that I was keeping everything straight. Realities, the characters, just everything that was going on. It was a lot at times. I think there were some elements here that could have been left out. We do get multiple POVs. We obviously get Bridge, the main character. We get her best friend Dom, who is honestly, I want to say that they were basically a second main character because Bridge and Dom worked together so well to uncover a lot of the secrets behind the Dreamworm and what Bridge's mom was doing with it. And I feel like both of them played such a critical role in this book that they should probably both be considered main characters, and I'm really glad that we got both of their perspectives here. But then there were also another couple of characters that we got perspectives from that I did not care about. I don't know. I think Amber is introduced as another person who knows what's going on with the Dreamworm, and she ends up being the person who is coming after Bridge. And basically anybody who has anything to do with the Dreamworm, Amber is tracking them down across every reality. Every version of Amber is tracking down every version of every person who has ever used the Dreamworm. Sound complicated? Yeah, that's because it is. And I think that having these chapters from Amber's perspective, it was good at first until they started giving us a perspective of Amber in a different reality, and it was just too many characters, too many POVs. I could not keep them straight. I was trying to remember who was where and who was doing what, and honestly, it wasn't working, and I just don't know. But I do think that it was nice getting that perspective and seeing that other side because it kept a bit of action involved in the story, knowing that someone was coming after Bridge and not really knowing exactly why or what they were going to do, but just knowing that that was out there was kind of cool, just done a little bit more complicated than it needed to be. And the one element that I had mentioned before and I still didn't care throughout the end of the book was the entries of Jo's diary. Bridge's mom had written all of these entries from when she was doing the Dreamworm and throughout her whole life, and they were all really messed up, and she didn't keep any journals in actual like timeline order. It was just really weird, and they were reading them throughout the whole story to try to uncover the rest of her experience, and truly I did not care about Jo's perspective or her journal entries at all. Like I almost zoned out for most of those chapters because I feel like we got more information about that chapter, or like that diary entry was then talked about a little bit later, and I got the gist of it enough that I didn't need to read it in depth, and I think that that made the story feel like it was dragging more and more, and I didn't need it. I think it was nice to have some of Jo's diary entries in the context of how the book ends, when we find out what was going on and why Bridge was truly tracking down her mom. I think that the diary entries were helpful. There were just way too many of them, and they went into way too much detail that I simply didn't care about. There were too many characters introduced to try to keep them straight, and honestly, I feel like most of them ended up being irrelevant in the end anyway. So a lot of that went into this book feeling just really bulky, and it just dragged so much, but I wanted to like it because this book had such a fascinating concept. Like, I still am reeling over the idea of these alternate realities and the very vague differences. I think some of the really cool call outs of the world that Bridge lives in, that the character that we are truly following in this story, her world almost feels like an alternate reality of this world, which I think is super cool because they are looking up videos on UVid instead of YouTube, or they have Lifebook instead of Facebook. But when she goes to another reality and she decides to try to figure out what her alternate self is doing and find out about her life, she goes onto Facebook and she watches a video on YouTube suggesting that the Bridge in this book is not even in our reality. And I think that's really cool. I think that was just a really creative way to kind of slide that in and make the story a little bit even more wild and out there than you could even start to imagine. Because I feel like books make things up all the time. They make up social media apps, they make up whatever they want because they can, it's fiction. But to do that and then to mention that those things actually exist in another reality, I thought was very, very clever on the author's part, and was one of the things that kept me just like, oh, I want to keep going. Like, those little nuggets that stuck with me along the way that really made me want to keep pushing through this book, despite it being a little bit slow at times, picking up towards the end, of course, but also dragging through some of those chapters that I didn't really care about too much. Time for another Silver Flames update. I am just over 500 pages into this enormous book, and I have not read it for about 2 days, I think, because I had to take a break so I could make sure that I got in the book club book before the book club discussion. So I'm jumping back into this now, and I'm a little bit behind our buddy read, but that's fine. So where we are right now, it is part 3. I like how this book is split up into 3 parts because of how long it is. It does make it feel, not that it like goes any faster, but it just feels like the pacing is a little bit more controlled. So how I'm feeling about this book right now, I am loving it so much. Like, truly, I feel like the further I get into this book, the more I am loving it. The more I am absolutely obsessed with learning more and diving deeper into who Nesta is and understanding her story and why she acts the way she does and how it is impacting not only herself as a person, but every single relationship that she has and all of her actions. It's just so good. This is such a wonderfully woven story, and I have to make a point because it's within the last 100-ish pages was one of the best written grief and mental health scenes that I maybe have ever read in a book. It was so moving. I was not crying, but I was moved to almost crying. Like, I got choked up a little bit at the way that she was processing things when she finally has that moment of realization and breakdown and just lets the emotions flow. I absolutely loved that scene with my whole heart. I wanted to sit in that seat. Like, it's one of those ones that it's painful. It's not like a happy scene, but it's one of those ones that was so good, so well written, and so emotion driven that I genuinely wanted to sit in that emotion and in that scene for a lot longer because it was just so good. And I love the way that it is progressing for her and having this self-discovery and the confidence that she has feigned for so long and now is fully actually grasping for herself. And then there's also the relationship with Cassian. Cassian, I love. I love him so much. And I feel like he is just doing the most in this book, and it is absolutely spectacular. I love him. I love them. I'm not going to go as far to say that Nesta is one of my like all-time favorite characters, but I do really, really like her. I really like everything that's happening in this book. There's so much happening. It is fast-paced. It is just it's so good. It's so good, and I'm really excited to be jumping into the last, I think, like 200-ish pages here. I have to wrap up pretty soon, but I'm really excited because I'm loving this book, and I cannot wait to give you my final update later. This book just brought me to tears. like happy tears. Like, I'm crying because the scene I just read was so darn cute. Like, I literally sat here. It took me like 5 minutes to read like 3 pages because I was crying through it. For context, it was right after the winter solstice party with the gift exchanges and the emotional confessions. Just thinking about it makes me so happy. This is so cute. This book, in a matter of like 50 pages, went from being like already a 5-star read, but like, this might be my favorite one. This might be my favorite book in the series. And I, up until about 50 pages ago, wouldn't have said that. It's got like all of my favorite things about the last 2 books and put it into one. Why? How is it so good? How is it so good? Someone tell me. Someone explain. Why am I crying? Why am I crying over this book? I should not be crying over this book, but I am. It's so good. I love Cassian, and I love Nesta, and I love this book. That's it. I just, I needed to share. that I did in fact cry. This book did in fact bring me to tears. So, thanks for that. I look a mess, but I just finished this book. And someone needs to explain to me why I cried not once, not twice, but 3 times in the last 150 pages of this book. 3 times. That's unheard of. It's not unheard of for me. It's unheard of for this series because I did not cry at any of the other books. There was like one scene that had me like choked up a little bit, but I did not cry at any of the books, and I cried 3 times near the end of this. Also, I just don't understand how how this book was so good, because I could have sworn I had 50 pages left of this book, and I could have sworn to you that this book could not have finished in that amount of time. Like, there was so much happening and so much left unresolved that I thought there's no way that all this stuff can get wrapped up nice and neat and tidy. No, there's no way. And yet, it was. And it was so good. Like, it was so good. I'm gonna need 3 to 5 business days to fully process this book. But this was so good. Like, 5 stars. 5 stars. And I think this has now topped the ranking as my favorite book of the series, which is really confusing for myself because I swore that I loved Wings and Ruin so much that like nothing could top it. And then like Frost and Starlight was so short and so cute and just like cozy. But like this book right here ended up combining my favorite elements of Wings and Ruin and my favorite elements of Frost and Starlight and put it all into one book. Did it actually just take both books and put them together and that's how many pages this was? Probably. But it had everything that I wanted, everything that I loved about the other books in the series. It was so good. Nesta, enough said. She's an icon and I love her, and yeah, that's all there is to say about that. Cassian, I thought I loved Rhysand. I really did. I thought that after the first couple books, I was like, you know what? This man is everything. No. No, because Cassian said, hold my beer. Or I should say, hold my wine. And he said, I'm going to show you what a good male is. Cassian. I got Cassian on the mind, and that's all. That is all, folks. I'm speechless. I feel like I have no real, like, in-depth thoughts because my brain is still processing how much I love this book. The progression of story, like the actual plot, phenomenal. The character arc, Nesta's story, her, like, personal growth, phenomenal. Absolutely perfect. I don't have anything else to say. Like, that's it. This book, I don't want to say this comes close to perfection, but like, I'm speechless. This book gives me everything, every emotion, obviously, because I cried. And yeah, now I don't know what to do with myself. Good way to end the week, I suppose, but yeah, now what? Where do I go from here?